I returned to Havenwood about a month ago. I was 35 and just lost my job as a journalist. I thought it would be easy to reconnect with my family and dig up some stories. But the moment I stepped into town, I felt something was off. The townsfolk looked uneasy, and whispers hung in the air like a coming storm. I went to the diner to meet an old friend. The smell of cold coffee lingered in the air. My friend was late, so I sat alone, listening to the chatter around me. That's when I overheard a conversation from a nearby booth. 5 men, they said, had made a deal. Their words were clipped, and they glanced around like they were being watched. I strained to hear more, but they hushed up the moment I looked their way. Strange things had happened since then, but no one would say what. Later, I wandered down the main street. The old factory caught my eye, sitting abandoned at the edge of town. It used to be full of life. I thought about asking people what happened, but most hurried past me, eyes turning cold when I mentioned the 5 men. It felt like they wanted to forget, like I was digging up something best left buried. I tried to dig deeper into the rumors. I visited neighbors I'd known since childhood. They shared tales of folks missing, like old Mrs. Wilkins, who hadn't been seen in months. Each time I asked about the 5 men, their faces twisted with fear. I felt like I was stepping on broken glass. This was no longer just a story. It felt like a dangerous puzzle. Then I noticed symbols everywhere. I found one carved into the crumbling bricks of the factory, something like a spiral with strange lines crossing through it. A chill gripped me when I stared at it. What did it mean? Was it tied to the deal? Every time I connected dots, I felt eyes on me, townsfolk watching with warning looks. As I dug deeper, I felt the tension rising. My old classmate even warned me to stop asking questions. He looked scared. I could sense the fear in him. It made me question what I was doing. Did this deal have a price? Was uncovering the truth going to hurt the town more? One night I sat in my childhood home, writing down names of the 5 men. I felt exhausted, but driven. Suddenly, I heard a knock on the door. It was slow and deliberate. My heart raced. I knew then it wasn't my imagination. I stood there frozen, the silence creeping in around me. The knock came again, louder this time. I felt something was waiting for me out there, lurking in the stillness. I took a deep breath and approached the door. My hand rested on the cold doorknob, but I hesitated. I was about to face something, but I didn't know what. The dark outside felt alive, and the air grew heavy as I opened the door. And then, just like that, it all went silent. The door creaked open and I stepped into the darkness. The chill in the air pierced through me. I peered into the night, but saw nothing. Just shadows bending under the pale glow of the moon. I held my breath, straining to listen for any sound, but all I heard was the rustling of leaves. I waited, my heart thumping hard in my chest. Was someone really there? As I focused on the quiet, a flash caught my eye, a sliver of movement near the edge of the property. I squinted. Nothing. It felt like my mind was playing tricks on me. I stepped further outside, driven by a mix of curiosity and dread. The night wrapped tighter around me, and then I saw it. Against the dim light, a shape darted into the trees. I hesitated. My instinct screamed at me to retreat, but something pulled me forward. I followed, the cold air nipping at my skin. The trees stood tall and imposing, their branches like gnarled fingers reaching out. As I approached the line of trees, a thought struck me. Could this be connected to the 5 men? Were they involved with whatever was hiding in the woods? I hesitated, heart racing at the potential truth. This could be the lead I needed. Just then, I heard a voice, a low whisper cutting through the stillness like a knife. You shouldn't be here. The words chilled me. They seemed to echo from nowhere and everywhere at once. I froze. Fear washed over me, paralyzing my legs. Who's there? I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. My voice cracked slightly. No response came, just the rustle of branches swaying in the breeze. I wanted to turn back, but I was rooted to the spot. Then I caught sight of something glimmering on the ground near the base of a tree. I moved closer, crouching down to get a better look. My breath caught in my throat when I saw it. A small locket, tarnished but undeniably ornate. I picked it up, feeling the cold metal against my palm. Something was etched on the front, a symbol repeating the same spiral pattern I had seen at the factory. My pulse quickened. How was this here? Why was it so important? Suddenly the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I felt a presence behind me. I turned quickly, heart pounding, but I was met with silence. The woods seemed to close in around me, and panic threatened to swallow me whole. I had to get out of there. As I backed away, a movement caught my eye again. This time a figure stepped out from the shadows. I squinted. The figure was cloaked in darkness, their face obscured. "Leave," they warned, voice low and tinged with urgency. "Why? What do you know about the 5 men? About—" The figure stepped closer, cutting me off. "You're asking the wrong questions." They glanced over their shoulder, the tension visible on their face. Before I could respond, the figure turned and vanished into the trees. I was left standing there, locket in hand, with more questions than answers. I needed to know what that was all about. But more than that, I needed to figure out why the townsfolk were so afraid. That night, it wasn't just silence that filled the air, it was the weight of secrets. I was about to uncover something bigger than I could imagine. I woke up the next morning with a sense of dread hanging over me. The locket sat on my nightstand, glinting in the morning light. I couldn't shake off the feeling that it was a key to something important. I decided I had to learn more about it, and more about those 5 men. After breakfast, I stepped outside, feeling the need to talk to someone. The townsfolk had been tight-lipped about everything lately, but I thought one of my neighbors, Mrs. Thompson, might know something. She had lived in the town longer than anyone I knew, and her garden always seemed to thrive amidst the gloom hanging over the area. As I walked to her house, the streets felt emptier than usual, no kids playing, no adults chatting. I knocked on her door, and the sound echoed back, swallowed by an unsettling quiet. After a few moments, she opened it slightly, her face lined with worry. "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just busy, dear," she replied, glancing around as if someone might be listening. "What brings you here?" "I found something last night." I swallowed hard. "A locket. It has a symbol on it, one I've seen before. I thought it might be connected to—" I hesitated, searching for the right words. "To what happened with the 5 men." Mrs. Thompson's expression shifted at the mention of them. "You should be careful with that." Her voice dropped to a whisper, and she opened the door wider to let me in. Once inside, I showed her the locket. Her eyes widened, and I noticed her hands trembled slightly as she held it. "Where did you find this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "In the woods, near the old factory." "The factory," she repeated, as if testing the word. "They say it's cursed, you know." "Cursed?" I didn't know what to think. "Why?" "That's where the 5 men made a deal that didn't end well." Her voice shook, and I felt a chill creep over me. "What kind of deal?" I pressed, desperation creeping into my tone. But she suddenly turned away, shaking her head. "I can't say. Things have a way of coming back for those who dig too deep." "Mrs. Thompson, please," I urged, but she looked at me with fear in her eyes. "You're in danger. You don't understand what you're playing with." Before I could respond, the windows rattled as a strong wind blew through the house. Fear flickered in her eyes. "You need to go, now." Confused, I backed away slowly, clutching the locket. I rushed out of her house, feeling the weight of her warning. The woods, the factory, the 5 men, everything was connected, and whatever it was It felt like I was being pulled into something larger than I could handle. But I couldn't turn back now. I had already taken the first step. I had to figure this out. Then I remembered something. The symbol on the locket. I had to find out what it meant. I felt an urge to return to the factory. Something awaited me there. Something that could unravel the entire mystery. As I made my way back, I felt a growing sense of urgency. I reached the edge of the woods, and the trees stood as foreboding sentinels. Whatever awaited me inside those shadows was closer than I had ever been before. That's when I saw it. A figure lurking just past the undergrowth, the same silhouette as the one that warned me in the woods. And before I could react, it disappeared deeper into the trees. I had to follow. I stepped into the shadows of the trees, my heart racing. The silhouette had vanished, but the mystery only deepened. I pushed forward, branches clawing at my sleeves. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic. I quickened my pace, the locket hanging heavily around my neck as I moved deeper into the woods. With each step, I felt a mix of fear and determination. Whatever was ahead, I needed to confront it. The factory loomed in the distance, an abandoned husk of its former self. The once bright facade was now cloaked in rust and creeping vines. I could almost hear the whispers of the past as I neared the entrance. Just then, a rustle from beside me made me freeze. I turned to see a small animal dart across my path. My pulse quickened, but it was just a rabbit. I let out a shaky breath and reminded myself that I was chasing after a shadow I hoped would lead me to answers, not danger. I pushed open the factory doors and they creaked like old bones. Inside, darkness enveloped me. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light that broke through the broken windows. The air was stale, filled with remnants of forgotten machinery and secrets that had been buried deep. Gripping the locket tightly, I scanned the room for anything that might hint at the men and their deal. On the far wall, I spotted something unusual, a series of strange carvings that mirrored the symbol on the locket. My heart raced as I approached. They looked ancient, but carefully etched, almost as if they were trying to tell a story. I traced one with my finger, a chill racing down my spine. That's when I heard it. A low whisper that echoed through the empty factory. At first, I thought it was the wind, but then I realized it was distinct. Words layered, like voices from the past. They came here. They thought they could change their fates. I turned, scanning the darkness behind me. Who's there? My voice wavered, but I held my ground. No answer. The whisper faded like a dying ember. I felt a shiver run through me, but curiosity pushed me forward. Maybe I was alone, or maybe the memory of those 5 men still haunted these walls. I stepped back to the carvings, squinting to make out the symbols. They looked like a map of some sort. I had to get closer. As I leaned in, I noticed something glinting on the floor. Another locket. But this one was broken. It was identical to mine, but shattered, as if it had been forcibly ripped apart. My gut knotted. What could it mean? Before I could examine it further, the air shifted and a cold draft swept through the factory. My breath caught in my throat. I turned once more, and this time, I wasn't alone. A figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked in darkness, watching me. "Why are you here?" it asked, its voice gravelly. I stumbled back, my heart pounding. I'm trying to understand what happened here. The locket. The 5 men. "You shouldn't have come," the figure warned, stepping closer. And just like that, my pulse thundered in my ears. I had crossed a line I couldn't see. I needed to know what this figure knew, what danger I had wandered into. But could I handle the truth? I took a shaky breath, trying to steady my racing heart. "What do you mean?" I asked, forcing myself to sound braver than I felt. The figure's face was shrouded, but I could feel its presence tightening around me, an invisible noose. "They thought they could control it," the figure replied, stepping into a beam of light. I squinted, trying to make out the features. A woman. Her eyes glinted like shards of glass, sharp and unnerving. Control what? I pressed, a mix of dread and curiosity clawing at my insides. I had stumbled into something much bigger than I had imagined. The power they unleashed when they arrived, she said, her voice trembling with both fear and anger. You're wearing it. Your locket. Their deal was never meant to be. My fingers instinctively moved to touch the locket around my neck. It felt warm against my skin, almost alive. But what did they do? What happened to them? She paused, her gaze flickering between me and the carvings on the wall. They sacrificed their fates to harness something ancient. They thought they could rewrite their destinies, but something went wrong. What went wrong? The question fell from my lips before I could stop myself. Maybe I should have left well enough alone, but the truth was dangling in front of me just out of reach. Those carvings. She started, stepping closer to the wall. They tell a story, a warning. You're not safe here, you've awakened it. Her eyes darted to the shadows lurking in the corners of the factory. I shivered, feeling the weight of her words settle heavily on my chest. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the factory, making me jump. A pile of old crates had toppled over in the distance, the sound pealing through the air like a thunderclap. My heart raced as I glanced back toward the sound, pulse quickening. The woman's expression hardened, urgency flooding her features. We need to leave now. She grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the exit. I didn't resist. Fear propelled me forward. We hurried back through the darkness, the eerie silence now replaced by an ominous hum that seemed to grow louder with each step we took. As we neared the entrance, another crash echoed through the factory. This time it felt closer, the noise reverberating like a beast stirring from its slumber. "Just go!" she shouted, shoving me toward the doorway. I sprinted outside, the cool air slapping my face. I glanced back just as she stepped over the threshold behind me. The moment her foot hit the ground, a shadow broke free from the darkness of the factory. It twisted and turned like smoke caught in a whirlwind, surging toward us. My breath hitched as the figure closed in. I found out who she was, but that made everything worse. Before I could ask more, she yanked me forward, pulling me further into the night with urgency. But I knew we weren't out of danger yet. The darkness was alive, and it would not let us go easily. "Keep running," she commanded, and we dashed into the woods, the shadows pursuing us with a ferocity that sent chills down my spine. Branches whipped at my face as we charged deeper into the woods. The woman pulled me along, her grip firm and sure, but I could feel the exhaustion beginning to seep into my legs. I risked a glance back, and my heart sank. The shadow was closing in, creeping like a dark tide washing over the forest floor. "Do you know where we're going?" I panted, trying to keep pace with her. My lungs burned, and I fought the urge to panic. "Just keep running," she shouted over her shoulder. We ducked beneath a low-hanging branch. The trees thinned for a moment, and moonlight spilled onto the ground. I could see her clearly now, a long, dark coat flapping around her legs, hair wild and tangled. Her focus was sharp, but her fear was evident. Then I spotted something ahead. An old, crumbling stone wall adorned with vines and creeping moss. "What's that?" I asked, a flicker of hope igniting within me. "The barrier," she gasped. "It might protect us. It kept them at bay before." We approached the wall, and I could sense a pull, an energy tangling in the air around us. The darkness lurked nearby, relentless and hungry. I felt the vibration grow. It was like standing next to a storm about to unleash its fury. "Help me," she cried, and I hurried to her side as she struggled to lift a large, heavy stone that had fallen across a gap in the wall. We heaved together, muscles straining, and finally, with a groan, it rolled aside. "Go! Now!" she ordered, and I squeezed through the narrow opening. Once I was inside, I turned back and reached for her. "Hurry!" The moment she slipped inside, a howl exploded from the woods. It was a sound unlike anything I'd ever heard, deep and echoing. I pressed my back against the stone wall, my breath shallow. "What was that?" I whispered, fear creeping back in. "That was the warning," she said, eyes wide. "The shadows want what you carry." My hand flew to the locket again. "What do you mean? What does it have to do with this?" She shook her head, glancing around as if expecting the trees to collapse in on us. "They thought they could control a primordial force, but the deal they made with the darkness, it's tied to you now." I felt a chill run down my spine. "But I didn't ask for this." "It doesn't matter. You have to understand. You're a part of their story now. We all are." She scanned our surroundings, eyes darting nervously. The howling got closer, a chorus of breathless whispers merging into an incomprehensible chant. "That's when I saw it," she said, pointing toward the shadows beginning to seep through the gaps in the stone wall. Tendrils of darkness coiled and twisted, each one drawing closer, inching toward us like a slow-moving nightmare. "They're coming for you." I didn't have time to think. We had to find a way out. "What do we do?" "Follow me. There's a cave nearby. If we can get there before they break through, we might find shelter." She started moving again, her footsteps quick and steady. I fell in line, fear coursing through me as the ground felt more unstable beneath my feet. As we ran deeper into the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting just out of sight, hidden in the darkness, the true cost of the deal made long ago. And it was coming for me. We stumbled farther into the woods where the trees grew thicker and shadows longed to swallow us whole. The chilling howl was still fresh in my mind, echoing through the foliage with each step we took. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet as panic set in. "What if it catches us?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "It won't," she snapped, determination sharpening her features. "Not if we keep moving." The forest was alive around us, but it was wrong. Colors too vibrant, sounds too sharp. It felt like we were trapped in a warped version of reality where even the shadows weren't what they seemed. I could almost feel the darkness reaching for me, fingers of night curling in the corners of my vision. "Are you sure this cave is safe?" I pressed, glancing back again. The wall was out of sight now, but I imagined those dark tendrils still slithering after us. "As long as we get there in time, yes," she replied, her urgency pulsing through me. Then I spotted it, a small opening beneath a cluster of rocks, hidden behind a tangle of roots. The mouth of the cave was barely visible in the dim light, but I could feel the cool air spilling from it. "There!" I shouted, pointing ahead. "Quick!" she urged, and we dashed toward it. I squeezed through the tight space, feeling the scratch of stones against my skin as I pulled myself inside. My heart raced at the thought of leaving the light behind, but I pushed aside my fear. When I turned to help her through, I saw her freeze at the entrance, eyes wide. "Wait," I frowned. "What's wrong?" "Listen." I strained my ears, and the howling had morphed into something different, more human, more sinister. Whispers crept from the shadows, threading through the cave like smoke. My throat went dry. "What are they saying?" I stammered, inching back until my back hit the cool stone wall. "They're searching for you," she hissed, her tone low and urgent. "They want the locket. They think it holds the key to their power." I clutched the locket tighter, skin prickling as I recalled her words about the primordial force. What's so special about it? I can't even remember where it came from. Her expression softened briefly. "It's not just a trinket. It binds you to them. If they get it?" The rest of her sentence hung in the air, heavy and daunting. I hadn't chosen this fate, but nothing seemed to matter except our survival. Suddenly the whispers crescendoed into a cacophony that shook the cave walls. The sound surged like a tide, draining away what little courage I had left. "We need to find a way deeper into the cave," I said, voice trembling. "Maybe we can lose them." "Not without knowing what we're up against," she replied, her eyes darting around the dark space. "There's something in here." Before I could ask her what she meant, a frigid gust of wind rushed past us, carrying a chill that penetrated my very bones. And then, the cave went dark. "Something's coming," I whispered, panic rising in my chest. My heart raced. It wasn't just the shadows outside. The weight of a new threat filled the space, something that had been waiting for us. We had entered a fight we couldn't understand, and I feared we'd already lost. I fumbled in the darkness, every sound amplified. My breath came out in quick bursts, mixing with the cold air that pressed down on us. "Can you see anything?" I asked, hoping desperately for an answer. She started, but then stopped. There was a shuffling sound nearby, and I clutched the locket, willing it to offer me some sort of protection. The whispers returned, closer this time, wrapping around me like a suffocating fog. I squinted into the dark, trying to make out shapes. "What if they find us?" I asked, voice shaky. "We can't let that happen." Her words were firm, but I could hear her unease. "We need to find a way to move deeper in, if we can find a chamber or something." Before she could finish, a low growl erupted from somewhere within the cave, and I jumped. "What was that?" "Quiet," she hissed, pulling me down against the cold stone. My heart raced, pounding in my ears. The growl grew louder, morphing into a mix of animalistic and human sounds, echoing eerily off the cave walls. I felt a wave of nausea, the realization creeping in that whatever was making that sound was hunting us. "We have to go now," she insisted, and I nodded mutely. We crawled forward, our bodies pressed against the rough cave walls. Suddenly, the ground beneath me shifted again. My foot slipped on loose gravel and I stumbled, forcing my hands out to break the fall. I winced at the scraping pain, but the distraction made me look back into the shadows. That's when I saw it. A figure emerged from the dark, a silhouette, part man and part something else, eyes glowing like embers. I froze, an icy fear rooting me in place. "What is that?" I gasped, barely able to keep the tremor out of my voice. "I don't know, but we can't stay here," she urged, her own fear palpable. Something inside me wanted to turn and run, but I couldn't take my eyes off the creature. It stepped closer, the light reflecting off sharp, elongated teeth. Desperation clawed at my chest. "Now!" she shouted, and I finally took off, scrambling deeper into the cave. We moved quickly, driven by the instinct to survive as the creature's growl shifted into a feral snarl behind us. Adrenaline surged through my veins. I didn't dare look back, but I could hear it gaining on us. "This place is a maze," I panted. "Just follow me," she shouted, determination replacing the panic. She rounded a corner, and I barely managed to keep up. The rough stone dug into my palms as I pushed myself forward, my heart thudding as if attempting to break free. The whispers grew louder again, mingling with a new sound, a pulsing, rhythmic thrum that seemed to resonate with the locket. I froze suddenly, awareness crashing over me. "Wait! The locket! It's reacting to something!" "Not now!" she insisted, pulling at my jacket. "We have to find a safe spot." But my fingers trembled around the locket. I could feel an energy thrumming through it, a beckoning that felt both ominous and strangely familiar. I hesitated, caught between the pursuing threat and this newfound power. Just as I made up my mind to follow her, the creature erupted into the narrow corridor behind us, its piercing gaze locking onto me. "Run!" she screamed, and with no other choice I complied, hope slipping through my fingers as we raced into the unknown darkness of the cave, where salvation or doom awaited. I pushed forward, desperately trying to keep pace with her. The cave twisted and turned like a living thing, each passageway leading us deeper into an abyss that felt alive. Every shadow seemed to pulse with a strange energy, threatening to engulf me whole. The growling was closer now, more menacing. "What is it?" I managed to whisper, my throat dry. "I don't know, but we can't stop," she shouted back, panic threading her voice. I couldn't tell if her strength was wavering or if we were just both pushing the limits of our fear. Then, unexpectedly, the thrum from the locket intensified, vibrating against my palm like a heartbeat. I glanced at it, and for a fleeting moment, the whispers transformed into words. Voices calling out, telling me to turn back. "No!" I whispered fiercely, shaking my head. Whatever was behind us was too dangerous. I couldn't let the noise distract me. "We have to move." After what felt like an eternity of navigating through the labyrinth, we stumbled into a small chamber. The walls glittered, reflecting whatever light managed to break through the darkness. But we didn't have time to examine it. "Where now?" I asked, my voice cracking from the exhaustion. She panted, her gaze darting around the space. "There has to be a way out of here, or at least somewhere to hide." That's when I noticed it. On the far wall, there was an odd shape, something that looked out of place against the natural stone. I stepped forward instinctively, drawn by the locket, which now pulsed more erratically. It's different," I said, reaching out to touch the surface. "Don't," she warned, but it was too late. My fingers brushed against the cold stone, and suddenly, the air around us changed. It felt charged, electric. Then a crack sounded, reverberating in the enclosed space. In an instant, the shadows seemed to rear back, and the creature's growl shifted into a sound of confusion mixed with rage. I glanced over my shoulder, my heart racing. It was still pursuing us. The way it moved was unnatural, almost fluid. As I turned back to the odd shape on the wall, I felt a rush of energy flood through me. The whispers became clearer, as if guiding my movements. I stepped closer, pressing my palm flat against it. The moment I did, a symbol glowed to life, pulsing in time with the locket. "What are you doing?" she hissed, fear etched on her face. I think it wants me to," I started, but I didn't know what it wanted me to do. A part of me scrambled to rethink my choice, but another part insisted. I had to trust this feeling. Suddenly the creature burst into the chamber, its glowing eyes fixed on me. I froze as it lunged, and then the locket surged with a blinding light. I shielded my eyes, and the world around me twisted. The cave walls shimmered and then vanished, leaving only darkness. My heart sank. Had I made a grave mistake? But through the darkness, a new voice echoed, gentle yet commanding. "You have the power to choose. Do not fear." What was that supposed to mean? I felt another surge of energy, my hands tingling with the weight of the moment. Somewhere deep inside me, the locket was trying to tell me something crucial. "Choose what?" I whispered, but the only answer was the echo of my own question. It was then I realized our fate was not yet sealed. And then a figure emerged from the darkness, hovering on the edge of light. Who was it? It stepped forward, and though fear coursed through me, a strange sense of recognition pulled me in. I braced myself for the truth. What had I awakened? And would it help us, or damn us both? The figure stepped closer, revealing features obscured by shadows. It was a woman, and as the dim light flickered around her, I recognized the same spiraled symbol I'd seen before etched in the air beside her. My breath caught. Was this someone related to the 5 men? A protector? What happened to them? I managed to ask, my voice trembling amid the swirling darkness. What deal did they make? The woman's gaze pierced through the shadowy veil, and I felt her urgency wrap around me like a cloak. "A deal born in desperation," she replied, her voice echoing. "They sought power to change their paths, but they awoke a force they could not comprehend." The growl from the creature still reverberated in my veins, but the intensity diminished now, as if the darkness itself hesitated at her words. They hunted for salvation, but it turned against them. What they sought as a gift was a curse, binding their souls to the shadows. The realization hit me like a wave. Those 5 men had become the threat that haunted the town. But what did it have to do with me? "And why do they want the locket?" I asked, desperately seeking clarity. "Because it holds the key to their chains," she said, leaning closer until her presence became a warmth in the void. "It binds you to them. It has chosen you. In choosing to seek the truth, you've awakened their desires once more." My heart raced. I hadn't asked for this. All I wanted was to understand the history that had tainted my hometown. But how do I stop it? How do I save myself and them? By making a choice. Her eyes bored into mine. "You can hand over the locket to them and attempt to appease their hunger. Or you can embrace its power and change the course, breaking the cycle they wrought." The growl echoed louder now, merging with desperate whispers of the 5 men, their voices swirling together in a panicked crescendo. The shadows heaved and twisted, a storm looking to consume me. I hesitated. Only a shade of time seemed to separate the 2 choices, surrender or resist. But if I choose to fight, what if it destroys everything? I whispered, fear constricting my throat. "You can only destroy what binds you," she urged, and her voice held a gentle authority. "Trust in your power. You're more than just a participant in their story." The locket pulsed against my chest, the warm glow fighting against the encroaching darkness. I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of history and consequence swirling around me. The weight of a town held captive by fear. I opened my eyes to see the darkness swirling closer, the creature brushing against the edge of my vision. "I choose to break the curse," I declared, my voice steadying. "I won't let their mistakes dictate my fate any longer." The warmth flooded my chest, radiating outwards, and as I raised the locket, it unleashed a brilliant light. The shadows recoiled, but the growls morphed into something different, a sound of anguish as the light grew almost blinding. I felt the energy coursing through me, a force unlike anything I'd possessed before. It surged and expanded, weaving through the darkness, and I could hear, beyond the cacophony, whispers of the men fading into the background. "Choose wisely," the woman's voice echoed, fading alongside the shadowy figures trembling from the embrace of light. And in that moment, I understood. The darkness didn't just unleash a curse. It had also borne the hope of release. Then, as quickly as it began, the light enveloped them all. What felt like an eternity later, I opened my eyes and found myself back at the entrance of the cave, the sun shining and the woods alive with sounds. I stood alone, locket in hand, but devoid of shadows. The factory loomed nearby, but it felt lighter, freed from chains I could no longer see. But the implications remained. I didn't know if the 5 men were gone for good, or if their stories remained tangled in the fabric of Havenwood, waiting for another to seek them out. As I stepped back toward town, the quiet was a farewell and a promise of questions still to be answered. I moved through the streets familiar yet foreign, feeling the pulse of the town shift. Half the people looked unburdened while others still carried their fears. I couldn't shake the unease, but one thing was certain. I would never forget what I had faced. I'd become a guardian of a history both twisted and redemptive, standing on the threshold of mysteries yet to reveal themselves, and I knew deep down, this wasn't over. Some questions lingered still, their presence a shadow of a past I could neither escape nor fully define. The risk of darkness, the meaning of the locket. It had all changed me more than I realized. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if my neighbor is still there, if those things still happen. But mostly I try not to think about it.